Thank you, everyone that's joining us. I don't know what happened.
What happened? I was like, we gotta wait. What? I don't know what's happening.
I don't know what happened. We got disconnected, but then I also can't find the beginning of that live, by the way. So, but we'll sort that out after. We'll sort out the
Oh
technical
God,
difficulties
don't
after.
don't tell me that it's gone.
It
Uh,
went to literally, I was on the live all by myself.
really?
Yeah.
Jesus. It might not have been saved, but okay. I mean,
It's not, we're not going to catastrophize. It's not the end of the world.
no, exactly. I was just about to say, I was just gonna say, you know what? Who heard, heard. Who was here. And that's how it was meant to be. That's what I was
Yeah.
just about to say. Hi Maya. So, um, there were two messages that were on there before saying, one was from I am me, I am me,
Mr.
I
Me.
am
Yeah.
Mr.
William.
Me, yeah,
Yeah.
said that you know, GPs, they just guess and they put out give you a drug and then they go, oh, that didn't work, let's try something else. And Hera, her her something, you're gonna have to, do you know?
I
I
don't know
can't
who
see
it
now,
was.
but yeah. Um, I feel it was female. She said that it sounds like what we should be doing is using more natural remedies.
Mhm.
So I'm all for that, you know.
And I think,
Um,
okay, so before we give the general
yeah,
practitioners, Anne-Marie, can't give them giving them a new name, yeah, give them a bit of a hard time. And it's very interesting what you say because I have a very similar situation
mm,
that I found out recently that I have arthritis in my hip and it's severe arthritis. So the prognosis is that I will need a hip replacement. And it's been
right,
hurting me, literally, like my hip. It's not the pain didn't start in my hip.
right,
It manifests as joint as a groin pain, and my groin has been hurting me for years, like just tightness in my groin. And the last couple of moments, it started to hurt a little bit more. And I went to the doctors, and you know how they are. And I'm very much aware of this kind of
yeah.
prescribing medicine thing because
Like,
when I
give me a
strained my
solution.
when I strained my back when I was a kid, they were just medicine. So I'm like, pain means something's wrong,
Yeah,
and I don't want just medicine. And so
yeah,
it took such a long time that by the time I got to do the MRI, basically, I've got severe arthritis in my hip. And anybody that knows me knows. And then when I was going through this process before it started to turn from I'd be out on a night out and I'd have a pain. And I just thought, wow, when you go past your 30s, you really do start feeling it when you go out. That's what I was attributing it to. And because I didn't go to worst case scenario. I really didn't. So I was plodding along and I was doing all
mm,
that. Fair enough, I was in a warm country because I was in Nigeria at the time. But I didn't go to worst case scenario because I was just like, no, it's not possible. It's just not possible. There's not going to be something genuinely wrong. So when I came back and got the prognosis that it was arthritis, it was just like knowing that almost as though kind of that worst case scenario, it brought the pain. It's like the pain, once I found out it was arthritis, the pain got worse.
mm,
Like knowing it's something real and genuine, the pain got worse. And I didn't, but one of the key things I did, and I've been doing through this process, and even now, whilst we're going through all of this, is let's try and prolong as much as possible before I get the hip replacement. Let me not go to worst case. Okay, that's it. It's over. This is going to happen. Let me, as much as possible, stay positive. And so when I got the news, that was like my worst fear, the worst news
yeah.
I've ever heard. And everybody around me was worried. They were like, "Are you actually okay, Martha?" Like, and you know, when you can see something physically, people feel sorry for you. So when you can see me limping around, people are giving me puppy dog eyes, which is worse than the arthritis, can I have you all know? And people giving me those puppy dog eyes, it's like, okay, but I was actually okay because I decided it wasn't the end of the world. I was like, no, this thing's not going to beat me. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to make sure I try and strengthen my leg. I'm going to do whatever because Martha likes to party and jiggle it down, and I've got carnivals to go to, and I'll be going to carnivals. And so I didn't go to worst case scenario. And in all honesty, the only reason I have not had a mental breakdown with this news is because I refuse to go to worst case scenario. This is not a catastrophe. It's not the end of my life.
Right. And it's really important that you said that, because the body and the brain play an important part to how it perceives pain.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what you said, oh, when the doctor told me, oh, I have this, right? What then happened is your brain then connects with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how your brain perceives pain is very important, because if you're someone that, and I'm not saying that, you know, if you find out news like that, it can be quite shocking, and it can take you a moment to, you know, really assess your situation and how can I work my way through this. But that's the best part of it, because if you can try to do that and think of, okay, let me not go to worst case scenario. What can I do? Is what you said.
Yeah.
Like, how can I exercise? How can I strengthen myself? What can I do? Rather than, I've got this. Oh my God, it's going to stop my life. I'm not going to be able to meet anybody. I'm not going to be able to go to carnival. And that's it. My life is just going to be a whole mess. Right? And then look, I'm young and now I've got this thing that's for old people. I mean, that's a myth, by the way. But that's where your mind can go, and you're just like, well, I'm going to be bedbound, all these kind of things. And then you stop doing things that actually would be better for you in the long run.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I think someone said something on there. But I wanted to give some tips. I'm not sure what the time is. What time is it?
I mean, well, considering
I've got
we
5 minutes.
we started, we've got time.
No, we're not going to do that. We're going to have boundaries.
All right, so that means you've got 5 minutes left then.
Okay. Boundaries. We talk about this. Nothing to do with us. The fact that it cut off. Okay, so and we. Oh, I want to tell a story, right? I said it to Martha. Martha, don't.
I'm here.
Okay. Right. I just told you earlier a story. So I want to tell you guys a story because you know that I'm a therapist and I work with clients. And I have a few clients that catastrophize and worry, right? And why I wanted to talk about chronic pain in regards to catastrophizing and illness in the body is because I really feel very what do I feel? This feels like it's something that really gets to me about the world and how the NHS don't speak about this enough, how there's not enough talk about how our psychological well-being influences our pain in our body. So I have a few clients that catastrophize worry. Some of them have chronic pain, chronic illness. And I was doing some work with one of my clients the other day, and we were talking about the catastrophizing, and she was going through what was happening for her in worst case scenario. And so we started talking about, well, what would be the best case scenario out of this situation, rather than going to worst case scenario. We then started to explore the situation, and I could see that her heart rate was going up and that she was starting to feel a bit distressed and she was overthinking the situation. And I said, well, talk me through what your thoughts are now, right? And she got to a place of saying, why can't I just tell myself to calm the fuck down, right? So then she continued, and then I said, well, why don't you say it to yourself? She's like, say what? I said, calm the fuck down. So she said it to herself. So I was like, you need to have a bit more emphasis on that. Like, you need to shout that out. So she went through the motions, and she, she started to laugh. So we started to talk about it a bit more. And every time when I saw her starting to overthink, I would bring that back in, calm the fuck down. And so at the end of the session, she wrote on a post-it note and she took a picture of it and she sent it to me. She's put it on her computer because what we're doing is work-based therapy and how she finds work overwhelming. And she put it on her computer. And literally the following week, right? The following week, she came in with her hair dyed, her hair out, straightened. I was like, oh my God, look at you. I said, but what's going on here? You look good. And she was like, I know, I feel good. I was like, but this is a whole transformation. Like, what happened here? I said, tell me about the feeling, the good feeling. And she went into it, you know, that she was feeling like, you know, the overwhelming feelings were coming, and some of the tools that we talked about, you know, of best case scenario rather than worst case. And even if you are in the worst case, accepting that this is where you're at right now. I feel overwhelmed. Why do I feel overwhelmed? And then start tracking back, because majority of the time you can find the source to it, and then you can explore that and recognize that where you are at now, you don't need to be at a worst case scenario. And the biggest thing is, even if the thing is actually happening, what could you learn from the experience? What could make you a better person? What could add to your development as a profession, in the profession that you're in? And those kind of thoughts helped her. And the fact that she could go back and while she's on her computer, she can have an intervention, which is to tell herself to calm the fuck down.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. It's an ongoing process, but it worked.
So that was, it's that trigger, isn't it? Because I think the whole point of it is when we end up catastrophizing, it's an irrational process. We're going to a point of irrationality. We take it so far that, okay, really, that's not going to happen. And sometimes you need something as a jerk, just the same, just as provocative to put you back in the same place. So you're being irrational, and the only way we're going to bring you back to neutrality is to be provocative and really push back. And that's what that trigger did. So bringing yourself back there. And so not necessarily catastrophizing, but I have the same thing when I work with my clients. When we're dealing with a fear, or when we're dealing with not kind of overcoming something and pushing something and going forward. And it's kind of similar. It's kind of taking it to a worst case scenario, but it's so ridiculous. It's like, okay, so what's the worst that's really going to happen?
Really going to happen. Yeah.
Will you die? So I always say to them, whatever it is you're worrying about anything, I literally say, will you die? Because the answer is no. Because we're not dealing with life or death situations in terms of you're going to go and do something stupid. We're not. So often taking them there with that nonsense of, but will you die? No, I won't die. Okay, so stop it.
Exactly.
Stop it. So,
yeah. I think I feel like should I give my tips now or at the end?
Give us some tips now.
Okay. First thing, accept that the thing has happened, or you are feeling the way that you are feeling. Accept it. Because the first thing you have to do is acknowledge this is where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not permanent. This is where I am right now. Right? Then you start to check the irrational thoughts. Right? So as you said, you can follow it on. Right? Like, would that really happen? And if that did happen, what would be the worst case scenario, right? And also, what could I gain from this situation? Like, what is the best case scenario? Because majority of the time, we never look at what's the best case scenario.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. I've never thought of that. And even if the best case scenario is I've self-developed, what I've done, I've learned something new. Right? Like, knowledge is power. I don't understand. Like, that in itself is a key to a whole other
realm that you could go into. Third, tell yourself to shut the fuck up. Just saying. Just
Yeah,
saying.
I like that.
Think, and I already said, think about another outcome. Practice self-care. I cannot say this enough, right? It's okay for you to walk away from your desk, from you to walk away from the situation and say, I need a moment, right? It's okay for you to plan in self-time in your week. Whatever that looks like for you, plan it in, right? Because you don't want to get yourself into a place where you then become sick. And I'm telling you, catastrophizing will make you ill. And the last one that I can say is, obviously, seek professional help.
Yeah.
Seek professional help. Seek a therapist, or seek a coach. Find out what it is that you want and seek the person that can help you, right? And definitely do not be around any negative energy. Because if you're someone that catastrophizes and you talk through your thought processes with someone and they're a negative person, it's not going to make you feel great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. So the other half of that is, now that we've dealt with that, and Hera, your point
Yeah,
about
she said something.
thinking about the worst case scenarios best purely because you feel like you prepared for the worst is an excellent point, and it's opening to what I'm going to talk about. But I just want to make sure I make it very clear that what we're talking about in terms of worst case scenario and catastrophizing is in the moment. When you're dealing with something that's happening or potentially could happen in the moment, and you instantly go to a place of negativity, as in and you're kind of not even thinking about what the worst could happen. You're saying the worst is gonna happen. You're almost saying this is
you're
definitely
in
gonna happen.
crisis.
Yeah, you're in crisis. But in terms of the reality of anything, so preparing for the unexpected, because the catastrophe often is that, right? It's unexpected. So in terms of preparing for that, you need to do that. Prepare for the unexpected. Proper planning prevents poor performance. So in that moment, it will help you. And you're correct. One of the first things you can do is think about the worst case scenario, but we're thinking about the worst case scenario when we're not in crisis. Okay, you're not in crisis when we're thinking about this process. And the reason you're thinking about the worst case scenario is that you can go through the steps. So you can think, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? And then you can think about what's the outcomes that are going to happen in, what help or support might I need in that process, what tools might I need in that process in order to be able to deal with what the worst case scenario is.
Yeah,
so if you have so you're saying worst case scenario, we're preparing now to go on a road trip. What's the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen is we have a car accident. Okay, so are we insured? Do we have a spare tire? Do we have breakdown cover? When we get in the car, are we making sure everyone's putting their seatbelt on? Are we making sure we've got one of those luminous triangle things to put out just in case anything happens? They're the sorts of things we're thinking about. So we're not in crisis, because when we're in crisis, we might not be able to think. So we're not in crisis. We're thinking from a safe space. What's the worst that could happen in this situation? And what am I prepared? Are my ICE numbers on my phone? Do I have everyone's contact details, everyone in the car, so we can call somebody? Those sorts of things. So you're correct. You think about the worst case scenario, but you should be thinking about that from a safe space in preparation for if something happens. That's how you're thinking about that. And then often life catastrophes, whilst we cannot predict them, unless we're talking about the real anomalies. COVID-19 was an anomaly.
like
many of us could have prepared for it, but there were little things that came out of that we really could have prepared for. And a lot of the things that happen in life, we could prepare for them. So lots of this comes down to a lot of the financial stuff that I talk about. And many of these things was a big thing for COVID, because if many of us had health insurance, had critical illness cover, or even some or job employment cover, like so when we were out of work, we would not have suffered through COVID. Simple, a simple piece of insurance. And we take this for granted. We take it for granted because it's not compulsory. You don't drive your car without insurance because, and we all know that the majority of us don't claim on our insurance. So every year you buy car insurance and you don't actually use it. But that does not mean the following year you're not going to buy it because it's protection. You know, it's preparing you for the worst that could happen. And the same is true of life. There are typical things that happen to us. They become catastrophes, but there are typical, even if we're talking about a natural disaster, your home insurance, you prepare for things if you're in a flood zone, if you're in an area where it's going to be a hurricane risk. These things you prepare for. So the whole point of it is there are some things that we know you can prepare for and you prepare for them. And many of those things are about insurance. So if your boiler breaks down, I keep saying this. Last year, I think it was, I was proud of myself that I made a good adult decision when I bought my house and I have boiler cover. And don't get me wrong, every single year that this stupid boiler cover goes up in price, I feel like cancelling it. Every single year I felt like cancelling it. And last year, my boiler, the motherboard of my boiler went. So the engineers came out from the company to fix it, and they were like, no, we need to get the actual Valiant people to come in and fix it. The guy came out, motherboard went, he came with a motherboard, he changed the motherboard, and I paid 0.0000 recurring pounds. You know, and so I was like, okay, good. All of my years of paying for that insurance have finally paid off. I mean, yes, they come and do a service every year. I don't care, right? But
I mean, you better care. Listen, CO2 is not a thing, man. Like, you better care for them to come and do the service.
But it paid off. So it wasn't a catastrophe, right? I wasn't in a moment where I was thinking, oh no.
Now you're going to have to fork out money.
To buy a new boiler?
Boilers are expensive.
You're telling me.
And you want an eco-friendly one. Oh.
Exactly. So I was prepared. So that's the same. Get your house insurance. Get your boiler. Listen, insure your life. Like, literally, insure your life. Like, but also everything, like phone insurance.
But why would you want to, for example, life insurance, right? Why would you want to die or pass away and put that burden on your children or a family member? Why? Like, you know what you're talking about? This is how I see it. Is something in my life going to be a liability or is it going to be an asset?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, yes, I'm not going to receive necessarily the benefits every year in regards to paying insurance. But if I didn't pay it and something happened, how much more would it cost me?
Yeah.
Like, people need to start risk assessing their whole life.
Yes.
Do a risk assessment.
Listen, good point. Risk assess your life and insure it. Do it. Listen, stop telling me you can't afford it. It's not true. Stop telling me the insurance companies don't pay out. It's not true. Do you know when they don't pay out? When you do stupid stuff like you don't give them information. Yeah, lie. So seriously, prepare, do that. And little things as well. Listen, one of the big things that's really big. So, and we take this for granted, but things, and this is to do with if anything breaks down or God forbid you pass away or things like that. Listen, these things are not black and white. The law, listen, get a will, go speak to your solicitors or speak to somebody and get a will, explain what you want done with you, identify whether or not you're going to be on the organ donor, identify what you want to happen to you if anything happens, where does your house go, you know, if you're in complicated situations with regards to your family finances and things like that, who gets it? Is it the wife? Is it your civil partner? Is it somebody else? Is it your children? These things, you don't want your family to have to deal with all those things. You died is bad enough, let alone all the stuff around it. Okay, so these are the sort of things that I'm saying you need to prepare for.
Yeah, plan. Yeah, Martha, could you also add on the fact that people feel that things can't be amended. So as your life progresses, you can amend your will, you can amend your insurance, you can amend anything, any policy that you have taken out. I mean, you're a guru and that stuff, so I'm not, but from my accountant, I know that that's a thing.
Not even can you amend it, you should amend it. Not even you can amend it, you should amend it. You should get a checkup. One of the things I say with my financial coaching is, okay, not particular, maybe we don't because but you think about your health, don't you? You think about your health. I go to the doctors, to the dentist every 6 months to get my teeth checked out, to get my teeth cleaned. If there's a problem with me, I'll go to the doctors just to get it checked. I hate going to the doctors, but I'll go and get a checkup. You need to sort out your finances. If you are not financially savvy, then you need to come and see somebody like me, a financial coach, and sort it out. Sort it out. Stop telling me that, oh, the things that you do, we could do myself. You could do it yourself, but the point is you're not doing it yourself. So get the support and help that you need. And one of the biggest things I'm going to say to everybody now, and I'm going to keep repeating this, and it annoys me, okay? So I'm going to say to everyone now, I don't want to hear these excuses. Save. If you do not have an emergency fund, stay in your house and don't eat out.
Can you tell them the percentages?
No, I'm listening. Like, don't go to McDonald's. Don't. All of it. No, stop it. Stop. If you don't have an emergency fund, how dare you, is what I'm telling you. How dare you be doing all of this extra stuff that you'll be doing? You're going to come and tell me you can't afford things when you haven't got an emergency fund. It's ridiculous. And your emergency fund, minimum. So this is minimum. So think about it. You should have a minimum of 3 months salary minimum. And I would advise 6 months to a year, because think about it like this. Think about the COVID situation. At least if you had 3 months salary, you would have been able to be a little bit okay through COVID. But COVID lasted more than 3 months. And I say this to a point, and I blogged about this, and I said, I'm not being funny. The world around us is a fallacy, because we say this, but what you'll notice is that the businesses don't even live like that. Businesses live in debt. When they're telling you about how much money they're worth a number in a bank. That's not real money. They're not liquid. They can't go and collect it. And if the banks practiced what we preach, then those banks and those, not banks, but those businesses and all those things, high street shops, wouldn't have fallen and closed down after 1 month. 1 month of people not shopping, and companies have folded and said we can't afford to pay anybody. So that lets you know they've been running in debt and they don't have any reserve. Look what happened to them. And we're talking about billions here. So
of course,
with your salary and your couple of better start saving an emergency fund, because that's going to be your biggest peace of mind, that you know the worst thing that happens when that boiler breaks down, I've got an emergency fund. If I lose my job, I've got an emergency fund for a little. Because if you don't know,
can I ask you a question?
How much money are they giving you? How much money are they giving you? Credit ain't helping you.
No, forget about that. But can I ask you a question? No, if you need it, take it. Don't listen to me. Like, listen.
But I'm saying
people have been paying their taxes for years, right? If the government needs to help you, the government needs to help you, because the things that we're paying our tax on, I don't even believe in half of them. I'll tell you that. And they want to take away the NHS from people who can't afford private care. Anyways, that's the question I was going to ask you. What do you feel about investing in like private care? So, taking out private care, what do you think about that?
I say do it quickly. So, for example, if I had done that, if I had had private care, then the process that I had to go through in terms of waiting to find out about my arthritis, or even all the times when I went to the doctors and they were taking their time and refusing to send me anywhere, I would have been able to do that a lot quicker.
Exactly.
So I believe if you can afford it, I say do it ASAP. And this is the thing with private care. It's kind of,
and they give you counselling. You get counselling and everything on your private care, and not a time like, oh, you can only have like 3 weeks or whatever it is.
But the
4
reason
weeks.
why it's also important is it's similar to other things. So if you develop an ailment on your plan, it's covered because you started it beforehand. But for me now, if I go to private care, I have to first announce that I have arthritis. So my
Yeah, it's gonna be
premium's going to be
expensive.
higher because they know I'm a risk of something. Whereas if I had that care cover before I had that, it would have been a lower rate and I would have been covered. You know, I would have been covered. Yes, even if I developed later, they would have put it on, but it would have been taken into consideration. So if you can afford it, like this is, I've said insurance, I'm saying healthcare, I'm saying, listen, prioritize yourself. We know we're talking about this. Prioritize yourself whenever you're dealing with these things. Think about what's really important. Think about what's really, really important. All these materialistic things that we spend our money on, they're not really important. Your peace of mind is. So prepare yourself for these things and take care of yourself so that you can do it. And one of the final thing that I'm going to say towards everything is, remember what I said, there are typical things that we can prepare for because we know these always happen. Even if you didn't, okay, we're going to come and start if we have a hurricane, because in the UK we're not used to that. That's outside of the norm for us. But in countries where there's hurricanes,
we're not used to any weather.
They prepare for it, right? But there's other things that we know and you can prepare for. However, ultimately, the biggest part of it that you need to do is you need to embrace uncertainty. You need to accept, because the problem with catastrophizing and all those things is about the fact that we feel that we can't control something. Just like the only thing in life is true that we're all going to die, the other thing that is true is that you cannot control everything. It's impossible. So you need to embrace some uncertainty. You need to know that with what's within my power and knowledge, I have prepared for. And anything else outside of that, I cannot prepare for it. I can't do anything about it. So therefore, I'm not going to worry about it. Because even if you worry about it, you're still not going to be able to do anything about it.
Right.
So my final point is prepare for the uncertainty.
Prepare for the uncertainty. And wait, hold on, because we got like 10 minutes, right?
See, I did well.
You did. I just chatted my face off. You did. Listen, right? I want to touch on the COVID thing. The only reason why it's not, oh, let's bring it back to COVID or whatever it is. The only reason why is because it's a good example of catastrophizing, right? Because I'm someone that I don't really take my mind that far, right? I've got fear like anyone else, and I procrastinate around fear. I think I've spoke about this before, but I don't go to that last worst case scenario, right? I always reel myself back and think, what can I get out of this, right? And this is how I saw COVID. What can I get out of this? And the reason why is because I read an article as well, right? I can't remember the article, but I read an article about pandemics, right? And that what happens in a pandemic and what is born out of a pandemic, right? Because this isn't the first pandemic that we've had in the world. No. And other countries, like you said about hurricanes, have natural disasters all the time, right? And the beautiful thing that happens out of a situation that you couldn't control is that you have so much scope to learn and do a lot more, right? And one of the things that I said is, because I'm just like Martha, I own my own private company, and it was easy to go off of what the government is saying. Oh, small business owners, your company's going to sink to the ground and you're going to have nothing, right? And I just decided, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the best out of this situation, right? Yes, I can do some free seminars or free stuff around mental health during this time, because everyone needs help. Yes, they might not be able to afford it because people are on furlough, etc., etc. But I can still work and interact because that's something that I really love, right? But also what I said is that this is temporary, right? I accept that this is happening at the moment, but it's temporary. I also accept that the media likes to make things a lot bigger than what it is in reality. As in, not that people are not dying and people are not suffering loss and grief due to this, but how they present things, right? Because if you remember, the news was 24/7. 24/7. What does that do to
Scaremongering
someone's
is what they were
psyche?
doing.
Right. What does that do to someone's psyche? In the
Scaremongering.
right. In the black community, right? Seeing repeated images of George Floyd. What? George Floyd. What does that do to us? Right? It is trauma, pain, trauma, pain, trauma, pain, fear, fear, fear. Right? And if you live your life in that box, you don't think of what is the beauty that can come out of this, right? How can I make my business more sustainable? Because Martha and I are all about how can you grow your business? What is your next step? What's the next thing that you can do? I've never done online therapy. Oh, but I did in the quarantine. Because you just have to think, okay, what's the next best thing that I can come out with? What's the new program that I can come out with that will help people during this time? What will help me during this time? You just have to think of what could be the best case scenario. And for me, the best case scenario was that I learned more things about myself. I grew my self-awareness. I maintained trying to have a healthy mind, and I put all the things that I learned into my business.
So we need to do the same. I love that. I think we're going to end on that point, because what I loved about what you're saying with what we're saying with the catastrophizing and all of this is think about the best case scenario instead. I like that. Literally. Yeah. From everything that we're saying. Prepare and think about the best case scenario that can come out of it, and learn from that. And I think that's excellent. I think that's a very positive point to end on, and that was enjoyable.
Just get it done.
Get it done. So thank you everybody for joining us, and so we will see you in 2 weeks, or actually a bit longer, because there's 5 weeks this month, so we'll see you in 3 weeks.
I'm not going to cry about the break.
Yeah.
I said I'm not going to cry about the break.
You're not going to cry. Yeah, definitely.
No, I'm not going to catastrophize.
Yeah, definitely. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you later.
Thank you for coming. Bye.